Hello, I'm Rick Pearson and this is the Brooks Hyperion Elite 5. It's fair to say that Brooks have not set the super shoe world alight with their previous efforts at creating a wonderful super shoe. The Hyperion Elite 4, this one's predecessor, was a big step forward however, and the Elite 5 is a further leap forward I think, and it really puts this shoe alongside its rivals like the Vaporfly and the Adidas Adios Pro 3. It's also a shoe that I think can appeal to a wider market, those who are perhaps new to the super shoe world. So without further ado, I'm going to dive in to all the good things and some of the bad about this shoe. Right, some stats. This shoe weighs in at 195 grams, and that is a big weight reduction on its predecessor, which was about 221 grams. It's 40 millimeters in the heel, which is the legal limit for a shoe, and 32 in the forefoot, leading to an 8 millimeter heel to toe drop, which is pretty standard for most super shoes. And it's priced at £240, which is the same as the Nike Vaporfly 4, and pretty standard for super shoes. I know it's a lot of money, but that's the world we're currently living in. When it came to designing this shoe, Brooks went to one of its most celebrated athletes, Des Linden, who won the 2018 Boston Marathon. And she's been working with them to really try and create like the ultimate marathon shoe, which I think is exciting. When actual pros get involved in the shoemaking process, they know exactly what's required in a shoe to win races, and I think that's probably an area that Brooks is looking to tap into with this shoe. They haven't had a big marathon winner for a while, possibly since Des Linden in 2018, and I think her expertise on this shoe is really putting it into that kind of conversation where it's part of the same conversation as Vaporflies, as the Asics, the best Asics super shoes, as the Adidas Adios Pro 3. Actually, you can now talk about the Hyperion Elite in that conversation. I think this shoe scores extremely highly in the comfort stakes. It's probably the most comfortable super shoe I've ever worn, in fact. It's really, really great, a variety of paces. And I think, again, that's a big plus with this shoe, is that actually it's much more versatile than some of its competition. I've run in this for doing long runs, tempo runs, interval work, and it's actually really okay on the kind of like the slower long run stuff, which a lot of super shoes aren't. So I think if you're new to super shoe world, or maybe someone who's not featuring right at the front of races, actually the Hyperion Elite 5 could be the shoe for you. The trade-off, of course, is that it's not quite as responsive as something like the Vaporfly, which really gives that sense of propulsion forward. The Brooks gives you that as well, but it's not perhaps as pronounced as some of its rivals. So you're getting versatility and comfort, but the trade-off is probably slightly performance. So if you're in the market for a shoe, a super shoe that's all about marginal gains and you're kind of featuring very much at the front of races, then the Hyperion Elite 5 may not be the shoe for you. Let's be honest though, it's not the world's best looking shoe. I think this colourway, this kind of baby blue and kind of pink colourway, even by super shoe standards, and super shoes tend to be quite gaudy, I think, it's not a great looking shoe. Some people love that kind of peacocking vibe on race day, and they'd be happy wearing a shoe like this. For me, I'd prefer a super shoe that just looks a tiny bit more like a normal training shoe, I think. So you'd have to decide for yourself if you really think you can rock this shoe. Right, let's look at sizing. So I think this shoe runs about a quarter size big. So I'm a size 9 in most shoes, and I can wear a size 9 in this. And I would wear a size 9 in this shoe if I was doing a half marathon or a marathon where your feet can actually swell a little bit due to the impact. However, I think if you're on the kind of, say you were a 9 but you were like an 8.5/9, I reckon you could get away with an 8.5 in this shoe. It fits quite wide as well, and some people have had issues with heel slippage. If you can see that it's actually quite sort of like a shallow heel there, and there's not much ankle support either. But I found that actually using something called the racer's loop, I've heard it described, is a really good way of getting around that. I've got quite thin ankles, a thin foot, but actually using this racer's loop was a way of getting around it. I'd like to show you now what I mean by that, if that's all right. Should you purchase the Hyperion Elite V5, it's going to come to you looking a bit like this in the box. And you can, of course, wear it like that. And if you've got like a big ankle and a wide foot, there's nothing you need to do at this stage. You can just put it on your foot. But if you have got a narrow ankle, what you can do is create this racer's loop. And what that is that you put the lace back through here on this side, creating this little loop here, and do exactly the same thing on the other side. There. So it looks like kind of some small kind of rabbit ears. And what you do from there is with the end of each lace, you go back through this loop here and do the same on the other side. And what that does is it just makes the ankle fit a little tighter, because you can pull everything in that bit more. And I found when I did that, I had no heel slippage at all on the shoe. Really, really worked for me. I've done it on a few shoes before. Ultra tend to have a lot of stuff where they recommend a racer's loop. And if you've got thin ankles or thin foot, it's a good shout. And it really worked for me in this shoe. It doesn't work on all shoes. And like I say, lots of people won't have to do that. But I think that is one way, if you love the shoe, but you're a bit worried about like, oh, I've got a thin ankle and maybe my heel's going to slip in it. The racer's loop is the workaround for that. Let's look at the midsole, because there's some exciting things that happen in this midsole. It's made out of DNA gold, which is a kind of PEBA material that is Brooks' most energy responsive to date. And it's also got these little eye-catching spherical cutouts here, like kind of like little balls there that are designed just to give a really nice soft and bouncy feel underfoot. And I'd say that just in practice, having worn this shoe, you really do feel that as well. It's extremely comfortable super shoe and some nice kind of new, a bit of a USP really for Brooks in the midsole, so lots to admire about that. Now onto the upper. So this is made from a silicone mesh material. It's extremely lightweight. It would be an issue if you went out in the rain in this, because I think you get wet feet, but that's the case with a lot of super shoes that are just looking to strip weight as much as possible. There's not a huge amount of volume in the forefoot. The length is fine. It's more to do with the kind of the volume of it, which can put a little bit of pressure on your the top of your toes. Why this isn't an issue, I think, in a shoe is because the mesh is so stretchy and kind of pliable that even though you might feel a tiny bit of pressure on your toes, it's not enough to cause something like a bruised toenail, which I've had in other shoes. But it's something worth considering. If you've had issues in shoes before where you think like the volume of the forefoot is quite shallow, then it might be something to consider with the Hyperion Elite 5. But for me, and I have had issues in that area before, actually it was okay in this just because of the nature of how this material is made. Looking at the outsole now, this is a rubber track outsole. It provides decent grip. I mean, as you can see, I've worn this quite a bit, and I've worn it on some harder trails, which is why there's, you can see a bit of mud on there. And it held up really well on the hard, dry trails, and also on wet and dry roads. So I think actually for all your needs, this outsole delivers, and it's totally workable in a variety of conditions. There's probably, having said that, more grippy super shoes out there. But I think for the application you're going to use this, i.e. for road racing, it's absolutely fine. So in conclusion, I think there are faster and flashier shoes than the Hyperion Elite V5. But I'm not sure there's a more comfortable or versatile super shoe option there. This is really like a super shoe for the masses. And I think that's a fine thing, because a lot of these super shoes, let's be honest, are made for elite runners who are running paces that none of us are ever going to get close to. And sometimes you can feel that in a shoe. I think sometimes these super shoes can feel like, oh, I actually can't run quick enough to get the benefit in this shoe. And I think with the Hyperion Elite 5, that's just not true. It's great across lots and lots of paces, including a kind of marathon pace, be that, you know, if you're looking to break 3 hours, 4 hours, or even 5 hours, I think you can get some benefit from this shoe. It is not the world's best looking shoe, I would say that. I would have issues in that area with it. I was not a shoe that I'd be like longing to put on from a fashion perspective. But then super shoes tend to be like that, right? We remember the kind of Vaporfly when it came out, it was kind of bright green. It's winning no fashion awards. That's just what it's like. That's the super shoe world, and you kind of have to accept it. But for versatility and comfort, I think this shoe scores really, really highly. And if you're a beginner looking to take your sort of first steps into the super shoe world, then I think the Hyperion Elite V5 is a particularly good bet.